Hello all, I myself Mohan Kumarian, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Srimati Sri YR Jyotisi, Pavagada. It's a continuation class. My today's topic is Introduction to PHP. So in this session, we are going to learn about basic syntax of PHP, how to write and save PHP code, and how to execute PHP code. After this session, you would be able to embed PHP code in HTML, and you can create and save and execute your own PHP code. Let us start with interpreting versus compiling. As we know, PHP is an interpreted language, but PHP uses a blend of interpretation and compilation in order to provide the best mix of performance and flexibility to the programmers. Basically, PHP is interpreted, but PHP is compiled down to an intermediate bytecode that is then interpreted by the runtime gen engine. So here the PHP utilizes the best features of both your compiler as well as the interpreter. Let us see what your compiler is responsible for and what your interpreter will do. The compiler is responsible for the compiler will convert the code to a bytecode, intermediate bytecode that can be used by the runtime engine, that is your runtime Zend engine. So your compiler resolves function names and classes names, and the compiler is responsible for creating a symbol table. So these are all the responsibilities of PHP compiler, and then your PHP interpreter does, your PHP interpreter goes through the bytecode line by line and executes it, and it handles the runtime exception. So in this way, your PHP utilizes the best features of both the compiler as well as the interpreter. Now let us learn about the basic syntax of PHP. To write a PHP code, to write any scripting in PHP, we need to maintain certain sort of syntax. That is some sort of rules we need to maintain. So here there are a list of points we need to take care while writing a PHP script. PHP scripts are plain text files containing PHP instructions, JavaScripts and HTML language. So usually in any web page there will be HTML code and some JavaScripts. Along with that, the PHP instructions will also be there. So save that script in a location and web server root. So here we need to save that script, the script code in a web server root that we called as a local host. So in order to execute any of your server-side scripting, that script must be placed in a local host or a web server root. Then only that can be executed. So name the file with the extension .php. As in any other programming languages, here also it has got some file extension. Here .php is the extension for your PHP file. So any file with the extension .php, then only we can say that that file is a PHP file. So all PHP code must be enclosed within these tabs, like angular brackets followed by question mark, followed by PHP, and then your code follows. Then we will end with the question mark with a closed angular brackets or any other styles as we discussed in our earlier class. So every PHP statement must end in a semicolon. So this is again similar with what we have learned in our previous semesters like C or C++, where every executable statement must be ended with a semicolon. Here also the same thing, every PHP statement must end with a semicolon. So here the blank lines with the PHP tags are ignored by the parser. Here if you have placed any blank lines in your script, that won't be passed. And the PHP parsing engine needs a way to differentiate PHP code from other elements in the page. The mechanism of doing so is known as escaping to PHP. As we earlierly known that in any web page, there we have, any code, there we have HTML code and some client-side scripting like JavaScript, and even some server-side scripting like PHP. So there must be a mechanism to make out certain part of code is your PHP code. That mechanism for doing so is known as escaping to PHP. So there are different ways to escape to PHP. There are canonical PHP tags, that is your XML style, and short open tags, that is your SGML style, ASP style tags, and HTML script tags. So these things we have already discussed, and let us know how those things, how those styles can be used to escape your PHP code in your scripting. So in this style, canonical PHP tags or XML style, this style is most commonly used style of writing PHP scripts. So again, the syntax is like this. This starts with angular bracket followed by question mark and PHP, and between these open and close tag, your PHP code has to be placed. So by putting this, we can make out that this particular code is your server side PHP scripting code. Next is short open tags or short style, even we can call it as SGML styles. The short style is the simplest style of writing PHP scripts. So the syntax is as like this. Here it starts with open angular bracket followed by question mark, then we can place our PHP code, and after placing all the PHP code, then we close with question mark with a closing angular brackets. In this way also we can embed our PHP code in any web document. Next is ASP style tags. ASP style tags mimics the tags used in active server pages to delineate code blocks. So here the syntax is as like this. Here your open tag starts with open angular bracket followed by percentage symbol. Then after we need to place our PHP code, and after placing the PHP code we need to close the tag by percentage symbol followed by close angular bracket. In this way also we can place our PHP scripts into a HTML or web document. Well, and again the HTML script tags. The script is mainly used while working with an HTML editor. So here by making use of the script tag and its attribute called language, we can place the PHP code in a web document. So in this style the syntax is as like this. So here it starts with a script tag with an attribute called language. That language attribute has been assigned to a PHP. This specifies that the language used is a PHP language, and it's closed with close angular brackets, then followed by your PHP code, and after placing your PHP code we end with the closing script tag. And next, how to write and run PHP program. So here in this session I am using XAMPP server to execute my PHP code. Yeah, the XAMPP is a free open source cross-platform web server package developed by Apache Group, consisting of Apache web server or HTTP server and Maria database and your interpreters for scripts written in the PHP, Perl and Perl programming languages. So if you have if you have already installed XAMPP, all your PHP code files will be placed in htdocs folder. The full path of htdoc folder will be something like d drive /XAMPP folder. Within that there will be a folder called htdocs. So we call this as your local host. So in order to execute any of your server-side script or any script written in your PHP, so we need to place that file in a HTTP docs folder. So here I have installed this XAMPP server in a D drive, hence the path is look like this. If you have installed in C drive, that will take a different path. Well, then to write your PHP program, open any notepad and create a simple program. So write your simple program in a notepad editor, then save the file with a PHP extension such as sample.php. Here the sample is the name of a script and PHP is the extension of that script file name. You need to place or save your sample.php in the HT docs folder as I specified in my first point. So in order to execute any of your script written in your PHP, that must be placed in a local host folder, that is your HT docs. So now you can open any web browser such as Chrome and run your PHP file using the localhost URL. So this is the place where I have stored my script. Now in order to execute that, what I want is I want to open any browser like any web browser like Chrome or Internet Explorer or any of your Mozilla Firefox like that. Choose any one such browser and type the URL, localhost URL. So here your URL will be like this. For example, if your file is located in D, XAMPP, htdocs and sample.php, you need to type in browser that you need to type the URL in the browser. That will be like HTTP, that is a scheme, your hypertext transfer protocol, and followed by your localhost, followed by the file name. So localhost is a place where we need to store all our files. That is your root of your server, where we need to save our all PHP scripts. And after typing this on your address bar of a browser and just click on enter key, your PHP program will run and it will give you a output. Well, so far we learned that how to write a simple PHP code and how to save that and what is the extension of the file and where to save that script file, that is at your local host, that is htdocs folder in case of XAMPP server. So after saving your document there, and we also know how to execute that. To execute that, we want a browser. So open any browser and type the URL and just click on a enter key. That will give you a result. So let us know how does the program execute. Now we need to know how that program get executed. So here in this case the transaction will take place between your client and a server. That is, client is your browser, that is web browser, and server is your Apache or your XAMPP server. So this transaction will take place on a protocol called HTTP. HTTP protocol, this transaction will take place. Okay, through web browser like your Internet Explorer or Google Chrome, your web browser request will be initiated with the web server over HTTP. So here my web browser will initiate the request with the server. So after that, the web server receives your request, recognizes the file is PHP script. So that PHP script will be recognized with the PHP extension. So after recognizing that script is PHP, it will hand it over to the PHP parser and interpreter for further processing. So after recognizing, I will send a request to a web server, where web server will recognize the script as a PHP script, and after recognizing it, it will hand it over to the PHP parser and interpreter for the further processing. And the PHP interpreter then reads the instructions between PHP open tag and close tag So whatever the script I have written between these two tags, so these code will be interpreted by your PHP interpreter and then executes and passes the result to the server. So after parsing, after execution, your result will be passed to the server, which in turn sends them back to the browser, that is your client. So here the client has made a request to the server recognizes it as a PHP script. After recognizing, it will hand it over to the PHP parser and interpreter for further processing. Your PHP interpreter will read the instruction between your PHP open tag and PHP end tag, and whatever the code between these two tags will be interpreted and executed by your PHP interpreter, and the result will be sent back to the server, and later in return whatever the result sent by the server will be sent back to the client, that is your browser. In this way the PHP program will execute. So here is one a simple example PHP program. See, this is your example PHP program. Here I started with the HTML tag. So within your HTML tag, I have placed a PHP code using a PHP tag. See, this is your open PHP tag, and this is your close PHP tag. Between these two tags, I have placed some of my PHP code. So here I have placed only a simple piece of code like echo. There is something like your printf statement in your C language. It is used to put some output on your screens. So here I am using this echo statement to print introduction to PHP on your browser. So after writing this code in your notepad, save it as a sample.php. So whatever I have placed over here, just copy this or type as it is in your notepad and save this file as a sample.php or any other names as you wish. But this is very important, we need to save this sample.php in a PHP file in a folder called htdocs when you are using a XAMPP server. If you are using a XAMPP server, then you need to save all your PHP scripts in a htdocs folders, then only it will execute. That is your root of a server, that is your local host. There you need to place all your scripts, then only that will execute. So after placing your after saving your script in htdocs folder, then open any of the browser, maybe that may be your Google Chrome, and complete browser, and enter the complete location of the PHP file as like this. So this is the scheme, as I already explained you. This is the scheme, that is your HTTP scheme, and followed by this is the local host. So local host is nothing but it is the root of a server where we have stored our scripts. That is the folder where we have stored our scripts, followed by a name of a script. So here I have mentioned that the name of a script is sample.php. You just specify that sample of PHP. So this entire thing is your URL, that is what your uniform resource locator. So in order to execute your code, you must specify this URL in a browser's address bar. In a browser address bar, we need to specify this address in a address bar of our browser and just hit a enter key. So the program will get executes and gives the output as introduction to PHP on your browser, because here I have placed a simple piece of code, that is echo statement followed by introduction to PHP. This code will execute and printed on your browser. So in this way we can execute our PHP script using XAMPP server. So here is a note. We must make sure that web server, that is your Apache IIS, is on, then only this script will execute. Otherwise, if even though we have used the XAMPP server, there also we need to make sure that the Apache has been on or not. So to execute this, the Apache or IIS must be on, that is your web server must be on, then only this will be executed. So in this way we can execute a simple PHP programs. Okay, let us summarize what are all the things we have covered in this session. So we have covered about compiling versus interpreting of PHP, and we know how to how to embed your PHP code into your HTML documents. That is what you are escaping to PHP. And we learned about how to write PHP code and where to save the PHP codes, and we also learned about how to execute the PHP code. Okay, that's all for the session. Thank you.